We're taught that 1 + 1 = 2. Simple, right? But today's world isn't simple. So, what happens if we look at it from a new angle? Could we make something greater? If we bring together human ingenuity, passion, and experience with the latest technology, we start to make something more. Something we can see in people's lives and feel in the world around them. Building trust for today and tomorrow. And that's the thing. We all know the math. But we need a new way to put it together. Which means we don't just find answers. We never stop looking for them. A passionate community of solvers, coming together in unexpected ways, creating new solutions for a new day. That's the new equation.
Central America and the Dominican Republic. We have been preparing this guide for several years for what has become a tradition for us. Our objective is to provide essential basic information about aspects which may help the investor establish and manage a business in the region, or for those who are considering relocating residency or work in any of the countries in Central America or in Dominican Republic. You have to know that this is the first time we have organized an event to present this guide, and we are doing it because we are still living in challenging times, and what better way to do our part than to promote business and investment. We give life to our strategy, the new equation, and which is to generate trust and offer sustained outcomes. I would like to take the opportunity to thank our tax and legal team for all the effort and dedication to provide us with this guide each year. I also want to thank the representative of governments and private organizations of El Salvador, Panama, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Costa Rica, who very kindly accepted this invitation to join us this morning and support the promotion of the region. I hope the information shared today will be helpful to promote business among our countries. And again, thanks for joining us. Francisco, over to you.
Thank you, Marisol, and thank you to all the participants in our event. For us, as Marisol said, it's a great pleasure to introduce on this specific way the doing business in the Americas. Again, gonna thanks to all the government and the private persons that accept to participate with us on a presentation of the doing business. As we recently was discussing, it's a great opportunity to present our region to the world. To all the participants, it's important to note that this presentation has been organized for the purposes to being seen in all around the world. And obviously, it's a very interesting opportunity to promote all the facilities that our region has. The first consideration is that we are talking about a region of approximately 60 million individuals in the region, and a GDP rounding $306 billion, according to American Economic Committee for Economics in Latin America. And mainly, as we're gonna be seeing in a step-by-step country, the legislation and the incentive that we have in all the countries are similar, and the incentive are similar on each of them. So it's an important issue to discuss about the opportunities in the region. Why PwC in Americas decide to prepare this presentation? Obviously, after 2 years of COVID pandemic, we strongly consider that the economy is growing, and is growing because the region possibilities and capabilities provides the opportunity to grow. Obviously, with some limitations, but it goes ahead. The Inner Americas and Dominican Republic regions offer different opportunities, facilities, and an important stability for the for the purposes to increase the investment and taking the benefits to be near to the North American market and the South American markets. That's an important consideration when we talk about Inter-Americas region and the DR. And definitely the possibility to have these decentralized opportunities all for all the Latin America's countries is a very interesting position. Our team in Inter-Americas is highly prepared to help domestic and foreign investments. And under, as Marisol says, under our global strategy, the new equation, we're aimed to build in trust and to deliver sustained outcomes based on our experience and based on the market recognition that day by day helps us to create more trust and to help the different organizations to go ahead with the investment in the region. The following presentation include a 5-6 minutes reference on each country with a complementary comments of governmentals and private guests that accepts to participate with us in a way to expand the characteristic and main objective of each of the country. The order we'll be talking it's Panama, DR, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. At the end of the presentation, we'll have an open Q&A process or session that will be supported by the participant and by all of the specialists in our region. Please feel free to send us the comments through the chat board, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with our answers. Thank you again for your participation, and I hope it will be of the benefit of all. Now, let's try to go to the presentation in details. Yes, perfect. As we explained at the beginning, the Central American region located between the North and the South America, including Guatemala, Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic. Why this is important? Because the possibilities of doing business here in the region, it's open, and through the years, we have a lot of changes, a lot of opportunities, a lot of incentive that we have included, and then it helps to coordinate properly the different ways that we can deal with the huge markets that we have on the region. As I explained, the special guest, we have Javier Galdames, investment director of the Investment Promotion Agency from El Salvador. Karin Lechner, head of marketing and communication at CINDE, is a Costa Rica investment promotion agency. Eliu Castillo, commercial policy manager of Honduran Council of Private Enterprises. Peter Prasmowski, executive director of the National Competitiveness Council in DR, and Hardeep Bular, marketing investment director, Ministry of Commerce of Industry of Panama. Guys, again, thank you to be with all. And let's try to begin with Panama. What's happening with Panama? Panama has a population of 4 million inhabitants with a currency, the dollar used as a currency with a very limited inflation year by year, with an important international center, included the most important banks on the region and in the world, and with an economic population of average 2 million individuals with an unemployment rate of 18%. Affected, obviously, for the previous pandemic time, but recent measures indicate that the unemployment rate have been decreasing, and this is important because the economy is trying to react and to retake the growth of previous year. According to the National Institute of Statistics and Census, we have thriving sector of the economy with interesting impact in the economy. There is the transportation, mainly based on the Central America's hub for Copa Airlines. In the case of the foreign trade, import and export activities, the internal trade, and the construction and financial intermediation. In the case of the tax system, important to consider that Panama has a corporate rate of 25% with some kind of alternative minimum tax when the entities, the taxpayer, has revenues higher than $1.5 million. In the case of a capital gain tax or legislation include a special rate of 5% withholding when the transfer of the Panamanian investment assets being sold with the possibility to another 10% tax. In the case of the dividend, we have a 10% dividend tax with the possibility to reduce it on the free zone activities. In the case of the VAT or rate, are the lower in the Latin America is 7%, with special rate on the alcoholic beverage of 10 and the cigarette on 15%. The withholding taxes is a general rule applicable to all the charges that we receive from abroad, and mainly with a possibility to reduce using some tax treaties in force. Actually, in Panama, there is around 15 tax treaties in force that can help the company to properly organize the investment in Panama and to properly has the benefits of the economic possibility to do investment in a country. In the case of promotion scheme and incentive, it's important to consider that we have opportunities to investment on the industrial side, on the tourism and the agricultural activities, with some other special regimes that provides incentive for the inscription of MNCs in Panama for the purposes to centralize management and other activities from Panama. And in other side, the possibility to has duly seated in Panama and other MNCs for manufacturing activities. And in a case of the free zone, we have a region that is worldwide knows, that is the free zone, the column free zone. And recently, let's say something like 15 years ago, the economic special area of Panama Pacific that has interesting opportunities to establish in Panama operations and takes the benefits of the regime for the purposes to deal with all the region and all the world through these special areas with benefits for the company, for benefits for the individuals, and to try to provides more capabilities to the companies for the purposes to manage its investment in the region. Here, I will stop some minutes to introduce to Hardeep Bular from the Ministry of Commerce for the purposes to try to listen its experience, its knowledge, and its positions about the Panamanian government regarding the economic. It's the team that Hardeep cannot access due to audio and camera. let's go with Dominican Republic. And now when Cardip, please, Stefania, when Cardip comes in, confirm for the purposes to bring it aboard. In the case of DR, DR has a population of rounding 11 million inhabitants, according to the 2020 figures, with an inflation control is a low rate, something like 3 to 4%. And in the case of the international banks, it has a broad list of international and domestic banks that provides the opportunity to manage the financial activities in a proper way without spatial limitation. That is one of the important matters has in Panama in the case of DR. The economically active population is rounding 4.4 million individuals, and the unemployment rate has been decreasing now, or actually is rounding 6.4%, according to the measure done by January-March Q and the DR. What we see in the case of the economic operations or the economic market in DR, mainly we have seen, according to the International Monetary Fund, a growth of 5.5% expected for fiscal year 22, considering very interesting industries, as the last paragraph says, great impact in the case of the hotels, bars, and restaurants. There is a tourism with a growth of 39.3%, other services activities, transportation, communication, and in the case of the free zone and the construction, with, among others, with a great sectors in the economy. In the case of the tax system, what's happening? We have been listening that the government is analyzing, always has in other countries, analyzing how the tax system works and to attract more investment. But again, here we have a very, very small summary about the most important matters to consider in the DR. The first one, the current income tax rate is the 27%, with an alternative tax of 1% of asset, right? And the taxpayers are liable to pay whichever is higher. In the case of a capital gain tax, it is taxes with the same rate. Please note that we have a little difference between the previous system in Panama and the system in DR. We're talking about here of 27%. In the case of the dividends, as you see, very common to see the 10% with withholding in case of dividends. In the case of the ITEVIS, there is the VAT for DR. It is 18%. It's an important rate, and exempted in the case of the export of goods and export of services. And has general rules. In the case of withholding taxes, we're talking about a 27%. As you see, we have probably we can conclude we have the same rate or a flat rate for the capital gain, the corporate tax, the withholding tax in all the possibility and all the transactions. We have the same rates, right? In the case of the incentive and promotions, it's very interesting to talk about DR because we have a free zone law with important exemptions, let's say exemptions on the income tax, on the VAT, and some exemptions on the real estate transfer tax. We have specific special economic development zones that grant incentive on the income tax and VAT. We have renewable energy incentive law, and comfort makes reference to the tourism activities, and this is the way has DR have been dealing with the possibility to attract more investment. At this time, I would like to introduce to Peter Prasmonsky from DR for the purposes to listen in to talk about the DR. Go ahead, Peter.
This new edition of the Doing Business is timely. So very glad you are you have this new version. Well, I mean, let me say something first. I think the world is going through challenging times, and of course, I believe that even though they are challenging, it also poses great opportunities, especially for a region. The COVID-19 pandemic, it was a turning point in our history. It has disrupted, the delicate balance of, global supply chains, and I think that it has crumbled in a way the very foundations of globalization. However, and especially for countries near the U.S. in our case, is creating new opportunities as big companies are trying to near shore their supplies and moving from what I call the just-in-time model, where a company in Germany, a car company in Germany, a manufacturing company in Germany, is waiting for this perfect timing of chips from Taiwan or copper from Chile, and then just produces the assembly of the car. And now I think it's more of a just-in-case model, just in case another pandemic comes along, or these geopolitical pressures that we're seeing right now. So this of course creates an opportunity for our countries to grab on those nearshoring opportunities. On the other hand, the invasion of Russia in Ukraine is also causing food and raw material shortages that our region can take advantage of to promote agricultural production and exports. And at the same time, the rising prices of oil and everybody is becoming more aware that this oil market is very volatile. So in a way, it's accelerating the transition to clean energy sources. And of course, again, our region has many minerals that are fundamental for the production of these technologies. So I'm very optimistic about our region, and the Dominican Republic is well aware of these opportunities, and we're taking the necessary steps to grab them. Our government believes that the way forward is by strengthening democracy and our institutions. So we have to do our homework so that those investments that are out there will find the Dominican Republic a visible place to come and invest. In that regard, we recently made an alliance with our neighbor countries of Panama and Costa Rica, so that we can consolidate our democracies and to provide a bloc that will give synergies and attract this global nearshoring investments. In addition, we have strengthened our justice system. We appointed an independent procurement, and we also fighting corruption and bureaucracy head on. So those are fundamental institutional changes that I think the international community will find very important for their appetite of investment in the country. In terms of our growth strategy, of course, as you mentioned, we will continue to promote our tourism industry. As a matter of fact, it was recognized as the fastest industry to recover among tourist countries in the world last year. But we think that we have to move, keep the tourism industry as a core, but move beyond. And we are working to make the Dominican Republic a world-class logistic hub in the region, and also betting on private-public partnerships to develop mega projects that will transform our country. However, the driver, especially the fact that the pandemic has created this limited fiscal space, the driver for growth in the future should be the private sector, and particularly for the direct investments that should come to the country. And what we have done is that we have established an investment cabinet, which is led by the vice president, which its sole purpose is to promote investments, both local and foreign, and also a fast track to those projects that are transformational for our country. And this is very important because it puts the growth agenda or growth strategy at the core of the public agenda. And of course, given the fact that stagflation is a clear threat to all of our countries, finding ways to promote investment and to make investor comfortable in our countries should be the center of this policy perspective. Especially in our country, that's the way we're going to move forward. So I can say, in just to close it up right now, I can say that our country is open for business, and we're very optimistic of the prospects of our country and our region. So we're looking forward what's going to happen after COVID is completely gone and these geopolitical tensions lessen, and our countries begin to grow again. So thank you very much for the invitation. This is what I have to say about our prospects in the Dominican Republic.
Right. Well, in the case of the DR, I was just saying that it's a great news to listen, Peter, saying that the government is thinking on the promotion of tourism has an important matter for the purposes to increase the investment and to increase the economic growth in the country. But they are thinking to move forward with the logistic part of the business. So that's another interesting thoughts, and mainly considering the nearshoring considerations about the North American market, and again thinking on the South American market and the Inner Americas market. There is an interest of 60 million individuals. So thank you, Peter. Let's go now with Costa Rica. In the case of Costa Rica, it's an interesting economy. We're talking about a population of 5.2 million inhabitants. In the case of the International Bank, we have Costa Rica with several international banks. So the financial system is very stable in the case of the banks that participate on the economy in a country. In the case of the population active, we are thinking on the evidence indicate 2.3 million of individuals on a active economically population with an unemployment rate of 13.6%. Again, I think that has in Panama, has in DR, the unemployment rate has been growing during the pandemic period, but I think, and now we'll be talking with Cindy about it, probably some thoughts about the activities that the government has been taking for the purposes to reduce the unemployment rate. In the case of the economy sectors, in Costa Rica, we has in DR, the tourism services has an important, probably the main activity that create economic growth in a country. And we have the health and the digital technology with another important part of the business, and the reasons, as we will see in the next slide, with an important piece of the market in the case of Costa Rica. For the purposes of the law, and again, following the same treatment than the other countries, we have a corporate tax rate of 30% with lower rates when we are talking about 160,000 revenues. And there is special incentive rates In the case of the advance payments, it is based on the previous year, but in 3 different installments. And the dividends is pretty much higher than the other countries. We have 15% in the case of the Costa Rican rules. And with capital gains, we have special scenarios where we have a 30%, but we're taxed at the normal rate is 15%. The value-added tax, it is 13% with exemption on the export activities, and the withholding with different rates, but with special considerations in some specific activities. For the purposes of the incentive and promotion schemes, mainly we talk about the free zone law that has just said it introduced very interesting opportunities in a country and introduce several possibilities for new business in a country with some limitations, some restrictions, but again, seeing what happened in a country, we have been listening more about more companies coming to the country to deal with the opportunities that the free zone legislation provides to the foreign or domestic investors. In the case of Costa Rica, we have Karin Lechner from the CINDE. Karin, thank you to be with us. Please go ahead.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for the invitation by PwC. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in Costa Rica. First and foremost, I would like to tell you a little bit about CINDE. We are the official Costa Rica investment promotion agency, although we're a little bit of the strange guys in the block because we're not part of the government. We're private nonprofit. So this is a public-private alliance, if you would say. We are very humbly recognized as the #1 investment promotion agency in the world by the International Trade Center of the United Nations after assessing 255 variables of performance of our agency. So what this entails to you potential investors is that you have a site and a partner to have those turnkey services and support, which are of course 100% free, for investors on behalf of CINDE to help you guide the way into the country. So let me tell you a little bit about what Costa Rica and what's going on here. Definitely we're a small country, but with great potential and power to drive and support FDI. We're a mid-income nation. Our per capita GDP is around about to $22,000. And we definitely rely very heavily on FDI to drive our economy's transformation, which has dramatically shifted in the last 30 years. As you might have seen, well, our FDI inflows last year reached $3.2 billion, which was definitely one of the records and above pre-pandemic levels. So this was a growth of about 14% of FDI inflows versus 2019. That was a result of the resilience that the country has been able to portray during the pandemic. While a lot of the countries suffered dramatically, and of course we had strained results in some of the economic sectors, definitely the FDI one was one that drove resilience and recuperation during the pandemic. Ranked by FDI Intelligence, we were able to stand as the #1 country in the world on the number of attraction of investment projects during 2021, as per the size of our economy. So we're driving right now about 11 times more inflow of FDIs than the size of our economy would usually say. And some of this, just to give you an example, last year we had 103 investment projects coming into the country, 200 million investment by Bayer, German headquartered Bayer, which is doing a combination of medical device implantable devices with pharmaceutical. We had reached 600 million investment by Intel on the smart manufacturing area, 60 million and 700 people by Terumo, based in Japan, and $100 million by Roche with 300 FTE on their clinical trials and services. So this is just to give you, of course, and that adds to another 2,000 new FTEs on the operation of Amazon, which is reaching now 500,000 employees in Costa Rica. So what are these companies doing and why are they coming here? Really, it's about driving sustainable productivity. We based our value proposition on 3 pillars, and this is in alignment with SDGs as well. So it's about prosperity, first and foremost, of course, people, which is the driver to attract FDI into Costa Rica. And then the planet component, which sustainability, which Costa Rica has been a flagship for over 60 years. So in the prosperity part, we host over 40 of the top 500 Fortune companies. If I ask you, what is Costa Rica's #1 export product, you might think it's coffee or bananas. Just to give you a sense, coffee, it's about $150 million in exports, but medical devices is our flagship product of export, reaching 5.2 billion last year. So this gives you a sense of how our economy has been able to transform in that hub for multinationals to drive efficiency-seeking FDI in a resilient environment. But goods is not the country's #1 export product, it's services. So the services sector, as Francisco mentioned, is the thriving sector, of course, in the goods. And this has reached 6.4 billion in exports. This is knowledge-intensive services alone. This does not include tourism. So it's interesting that during the pandemic, medical device exports were able to grow 24%, and then services exports grew 7% during 2021 and 8% during 2020. So you have a consistent growth of exports across the board during the pandemic. How were we able to do that? Being small means being very compact. So you're able to move agilely, and we didn't have any shutdowns of operations. So as our colleagues from the Dominican Republic were saying, when you have redesign of supply chains and you need to ascertain that they have business continuity, we were able to provide that, and that is part of how we were able to sustain and, of course, drive greater investment. So a lot of these processes have to do with enhanced, on the medical side, enhanced end-to-end procedures, where we supply services from the supply chain design processes all the way to manufacturing, and now R&D processes, such as the lab that Boston Scientific has in the country for R&D medical device design. Same things goes for the services sector, where we started very basically late 80s with contact centers, but it has evolved dramatically. Now we have cloud computing excellent centers such as the ABM1 and Akamai cloud computing. We do AI, we do RPA on services support. So those are some of the examples of things that happen. Why does this happen? Because of our people, which is the pillar that I was mentioning. Of course, we don't have an army, and we're one of the oldest democracies. So in a region which has been very convulsed in shiftings of political standings, Costa Rica remains very, very stable. And we, of course, since we are able to abolish that, we are able to have a heavy spending of our GDP on education. Over nearly 8% of our education goes to, of our GDP goes to education, which is doubling the average of spending on education of OECD countries, just to have a sense. So our human capital is ranked #1 in the world in Latin America in workforce skills and quality of education by the World Economic Forum. And these services that the companies are deploying are being served 85% in English. So these are not services that are served to Latin America, but to US, Europe, and follow the sun strategies and services operations. And of course, we think very thoroughly on how we're going to convert that talent to the challenges of future thinking and jobs of the future. Definitely, what we see is alliances with universities globally. For example, we have done alliances with the University of Minnesota and Rice to have those programs information with the Tech Institute in Costa Rica, which is a little bit of an MIT, if you would say, for us, so that we can include this development of a master's degree of medical device design. It's the only program in Latin America that provides that formation, which enables us to align that workforce with the needs of the future. And of course, Francisco was also mentioning the free trade zone. That is the flagship of our investment for the goods. This is in a combination. We know that Costa Rica's economy is small, but we serve as a platform to reach markets. So we have developed a full range, network of free trade zone agreements, which allows us to have preferential access to 2/3 of the global markets. And what that means is we have been able to do these alliances with the US, with China. Our free trade zone with China has been going on for the last 10 years. This is not something new for us. And even after the trade wars that have been going on, we play with everyone. We have free trade agreements with Europe as well, Nordic countries, South Korea, and Singapore as well. So we serve at that deploying platform where companies can bring in production inputs, transform, add value, and then ship to end markets. And what that means is they leverage the free trade zone, because that free trade zone provides that 0% on income tax, 0% on imports, 0% on exports, and then a full exemption on local purchases. So companies are able to do productive linkages, source locally, and find those efficiencies in supply chain as well. And those are among some of the benefits. Most recently, this year in April of 2022, we passed a new addition to the free trade zone, which of course is in alignment with World Trade Organization and OECD standards. Remember that Costa Rica recently joined the OECD countries as the 38th member of the OECD. So all our free trade zone regime is in alignment with BEPS practices from the OECD to eliminate based erosion profit shifting, which is a big concern for governments as well as companies. And so our regime is compliant with that, and it enables to do that deployment. And recently, we were able to add 3 elements that I wanted to let you know about within the free trade zone, which are tax incentives or 4.0 incentives outside the scope of just fiscality. This enables a reduction on Social Security wages, for one thing, and it enables enactment of free trade zone for agricultural and health services development under free trade zone as well. So these are 2 very dynamic sectors. And finally, to close in, we passed 2 new laws for incentives and investment for digital nomads and for individual investors to come into the country, thus providing, of course, a great opportunity for real estate development, not only on an individual level, but of course on a corporate level to support all of those services. So just a little bit of an overview. And final component would be the component of planet, which of course Costa Rica flagships on 99.8% renewable energy already. So just by plugging into our grid, your operation is also a huge step into carbon neutrality, which is a big concern and investment for a lot of companies. So hopefully that'll give you a brief overview of what we are doing here and leave you with some things to think about moving forward.
Thank you, Karin. It's very interesting because, as you described, Costa Rica has been growing on a very clear basis for the different sectors that want to improve and to offer to the world the possibilities to a structured economy that increase the participation in the several business. I'm surprised about the medical side because is very interesting. It's a niche that have been growth, and obviously with the recent opportunities and the new legislation, it will be increasing more and more, right? And creating an important facility in Costa Rica for the purposes to increase the capabilities of the government. Thank you a lot, Karim. And now let's move ahead with Guatemala. Guatemala, we're talking about 16.8 million individuals in a country with an historical inflation very controlled, increase during the high period of the pandemic, but according to the last numbers, it has been reduced. In the case of the financial sector, we have several important banks in a country with a economically active population of 7 million individuals with an unemployment rate of 5.8%. This is very interesting because it's a low rate of unemployment. It seems that the Guatemalan economy is working properly in the case of the control of the unemployment and the possibilities to growth, considering obviously this 16 million population in a country. In the case of the latest data, we have a important primary sector in Guatemala, considering the agriculture, the livestock, the hunting, the forestry and fishing, and mining, with an important GDP or participation in the GDP for 2019 of 10.9% and a growth of 2.3% compared with the previous year. And other important sectors we have on Guatemala include the accommodation and food services, the exploitation and quarry mines, the financial activities, and some other important industry and construction activities in a country. Sorry. In the case of the tax system, it's very interesting to consider that the corporate income tax rate is 25% on net income or 7% on gross. It's a decision of the taxpayer to take one or the other system. In the case of the advanced income tax payments, the taxpayer can choose to has a partial liquidation each quarter, or to has a taxable base of 8% over the gross income in a corresponding quarter. The prepayment will be applied against the annual income tax. In the case of the capital gain tax, it is a flat rate of 10%. And as you see, we have 4 countries. We have 3 with 10%, and we have another with 15%. As I explained at the beginning, it's a similar rules on each of the countries. In the case of the dividends, we have a 5% withholding tax. Here we have a lower rate than the 10% and the 15% that has on the previous countries. And in the case of the VAT, we have a 12% base for the VAT, with exemption for the export of goods and export of services. In the case of withholding, we have a 15 or 25% rate. That is very common according to the other countries in the region. In the case of the incentive and promotion scams, we have a free zone law that has and provide exemptions on the income tax and exemptions on the VAT and some other exemption on the municipal taxes, right? In the case of special economic development zones, it has the same kind of exemption for tax and for VAT and municipal, with the addition of the custom duties. In the case of energy, it is in the same way than the rest of the countries, providing exemptions of income tax. I think we have from previous year interest on the ESG activities in all our region, and that's this exemption. It's the important evidence about it. And we have a Maquila regime law that provides some special rules in the case of the possibility to go to the country and to establish formally Maquila's activities. And the Maquila's activities on the so sorry, I was just listening to other people saying that no, cannot see the presentation, so sorry. And well, in the case of the Maquila, the exemption to export and tax exemption on importation and value-added tax. As you see, in the case of the Guatemala, we have the same kind of exemptions that has in the other countries, and mainly no special changes regarding the structure of the country. In this case, I think we do not have a person from the government or the private sector in Guatemala, but probably would take a minute just to ask to Roberto about any new evidence of or new considerations of the government about incentive or promotion schemes that are not considered here. Roberto?
Thank you, Francisco. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. Yes, basically, we wanted to make to consider the fact that the tax system, the territorial tax system, has a lot of advantages, as you mentioned previously. Guatemala has the particular territorial tax system in which we have two tax systems, and that gives an advantage to the taxpayers because they can choose. If they have one entity in Guatemala, they can choose to which tax regime is better for them, and this regime can be changed over the course of the tax years. And additionally, if if the entities have two or more entities in Guatemala, they can coexist, these entities that has a lot of tax benefits. And in recent years, we have been experiencing an increase of the incentives on the Maquila regime that you mentioned, that the tax law had an amendment a few years ago, and that Maquila regime is specifically for textile operations and logistics and telecommunications. So we have been seeing a lot of increase in shared service centers, using this type of incentives in Guatemala for exports of services, since these exports of services, as you mentioned, are VAT exempt. And in recent years, that the free trade zones, they have an amendment in the law that excluded a lot of important activities in the free trade zone incentive. But fortunately, last year, by another amendment of the law, the Congress reinstated those activities in the free trade zone regimes. So basically, this gave a lot of exposure and a lot of an uphill to the free trade zone. So this year, we are experiencing a new incorporation of these new entities that were previously excluded in the free trade zone activities in Guatemala, so they can be back and using these tax incentives.
Thank you, Roberto. Yes, the question is just because I listened about some changes on the maquila regime and the free zone, and well, as you can see, in the case of the Guatemala, the thought goes in a way to increase the logistic part of business and the shared service center and some kind of accelerators for the purposes to deal with the international needs. Thank you a lot, Roberto. Let's move on to El Salvador. In the case of El Salvador, we're talking about an economy of 6.6 million individuals. The currency very stable. They are using the US dollars, and the law recognized the use of the Bitcoin for the purposes of the economic business. Has been very interesting experience listening the government talking about the Bitcoin. And this is something that probably will be listening more and more in the next years. The inflation, the accumulated inflation is 6%. In the case of the financial sector, we're talking about the existence of important banks, and using the dollar and with the existence of this kind of banks, we have been in touch with an important a sector that have helps the growth of the economy during the years. The unemployment rate is very low. We're talking about less than 6%, according to the World Bank on the fiscal year 2021. And it's important to hear about this low rate, because the economic is working. This is very close to the unemployment, the conceptual unemployment rate. That is an interesting position. In the case of the economy sectors, we're talking about the most thriving sector on the economy are related with the services and trade, and in some cases, or with a lower rate in the case of the industry and agriculture. It's important to talk about the strong sector, considering the possibility of the construction and the electricity has another important GDP participant in the case of El Salvador. If we're talking about the tax system, well, we have a rate of 25% for taxable income, less or equal to the 150,000, and the 30% for higher, right? And again, as we see in the previous countries, we're talking about a 25 or 30% has a corporate income tax. In the case of the advance payment, we have a 1.75 of gross income has a payment in advance to be offset against the annual tax. In the case of the capital gain tax, we're talking about the same 10%. And in the case of the dividends, we have a 5% withholding, if or with a special rule for beneficiaries located in tax havens, in which case the rate of dividend is increased to 25%. In the case of the VAT, we have a 13% tax base with exemption for the export activities. And in the case of the withholding, we have a 20% rate of withholding tax. For the incentive and promotion scams, we have, again, a free zone law that provides exemption of income tax, VAT, municipal taxes, and custom duties. We have an important or recent law that, or under this law, it has exemption of income tax with some limited years. In the case of renewable energy and incentive law, we have another important exemptions, considering custom duties, import, in case of import of machinery, equipment, and some material, and the first 10 years of operation. In international service law, it is related more or less with the free zone laws and the public-private partnership law. It's a very new legislation, and it's another way that government has been considering for the purposes to increase the capabilities of the government to improve the infrastructure of the country, and it includes several possibilities that will be applicable to each one that participate on it. For the purposes to have some other important measures about the Salvador economy, the Salvador system, and the opportunities to do business in Salvador, we have Javier Galdames. Javier, welcome to our participation. And again, thank you a lot for joining the event.
No, thank you all for this invitation. And this is a very relevant occasion to really highlight the strong leadership and teamwork that we're doing in El Salvador regarding fostering new investments. We're an investment promotion agency, but currently we're part of the presidential team. So this is relevant because we're becoming a real business ombudsman. So the time to do business in our country is now. Technology, as you might have heard regarding Bitcoin and how El Salvador has been coming to view as a big sandbox to really test out new business models. This is relevant because not only the private sector, but also the public sector, we're investing a lot in technology so that into the business climate, so that we can really stand out as the easiest or the least complex country to do business in Latin America. So cutting the red tape with technology for us is very relevant. Another relevant aspect of this country is the labor force. I mean, the work ethic, the industriousness, how we have relevant good practice of linking the academia, public sector, private sector. But if not, we wouldn't have one of the biggest MRO operations of this hemisphere without a month. So we don't sell ourselves with cheap labor wages, but relevant, competitive wages among Central America. So the people stand out here. And this is something that we feel very keen on sharing because even though the metric is something that is being managed from the view of the private sector, but really what we've been understanding is that we have one of the per square meter, one of the most productive square meters amongst different Central American firms. Another thing to highlight is the relevant infrastructure that we have. Road connectivity, as you mentioned, we have a PPP law, and we have our first public-private partnership of our history, which is the air cargo terminal, which nowadays, falling into place, viewing our country as an export platform, we're going to have European standards at our airport to manage the exports, imports, and storage of many different goods. So managing European standards, practically German timing in our airport is very relevant. And another thing is that even though we're a small country, we're very connected. We really stand out in the speed to market and how this new government placing technology into place into our customs unit. Speed to market has been improving quite dramatically. 17 different free trade zones, 21,000 square kilometers as a country, for the country as a whole. It's a very small country, but hence the export platform view, how we can really stand out logistically, and also taking into account the free trade agreements with 42 different countries. So relevant legal framework placing besides the free trade zones and the free trade agreements, the incentives that you mentioned. I mean, it's being, you can see the linkage to a relevant services sector, like you said in the presentation, BPOs, ITOs, KPOs, call centers. Definitely, this is where we stand out. And why? It's always related to the human capital. How we have a very neutral English language. how we're promoting this sector. Not only that, but also investments in energy, life sciences, and the chemical pharmaceutical industry, tourism, logistics, as you heard me, aeronautics, it easily stands out. Textiles and apparel is a sector, a relevant sector for us, and how we're viewing this as the investment promotion agency is how we can really integrate a vertically integrated cluster where we're very strong at, how we can connect it to different industries, how we can connect it to the medical device, how we can connect it to aeronautics or to auto parts. So this is relevant to talk about El Salvador. The government synergy to doing business. Our president is not only a leader, but also expects of us to not to compete, but to really work as a team. Because the time to do business in this country, in my experience, this is the moment. And in this case, the Investment Promotion Agency becomes your partner because we facilitate even more information regarding the incentives, the legislation, availability of human capital. If you wish to visit El Salvador, we can prepare a very tailor-made agenda according to your needs. We can have this also virtually. We can really get the ball rolling and really view us as a strategic ally from the pre-establishment phase towards the post-establishment phase. That's the view of this institution that I wish to share this morning, and I thank you for your time.
Oh, Javier, thank you to you. I think that it's very interesting to listen about the highly productive farm due to square merit. That's an excellent comment, right? And in the case of the integration of the different regimes and the different facilities and the different opportunities that has a country, I think that's the key. We listened recently, our colleague from Costa Rica talking about the integration. So I think that's the road we need to take control for the purposes that our economies can present to the world an excellent country to do business, right? And obviously, you are talking about high investment in technology. That's great. That's great. If we think on countries with great technology developments, I think the government and the different private institution will increase its capabilities, thinking on the expert of that capabilities to the world. So excellent, Javier. Thank you a lot. I think that El Salvador will be growing, and our team in El Salvador will be more than happy to deal with all these opportunities that the government is creating. Thank you, Javier. Now let's move to Honduras. Well, in the case of Honduras, we're talking about a population of roughly 10 million inhabitants, with the currency very stable, the lempira, with an historic inflation control. I think we are talking about 5% of historical inflation in a country. That is very low, considering the time that we are. In the case of the financial sector, we have a strong financial sector with important international entities. In the case of the economically active population, we're talking about around 3.7 million, but with a formal salary only 2 million. And according to the World Bank, we have an unemployment rate of 8.6%. Just for your benefit, here with me, Ramon Morales from our office in Honduras. In the case of the strong economy sector, reviewing the Central Bank of Honduras activities, showing the highest growth between January and March. We have the hotels and restaurants, right? Obviously, we open the economy, then we'll have on the tourism activities an immediate impact. In the case of transport and storage, we have a 15% growth, and the financial intermediation, insurance, and pension fund, another 14%. And in the manufacturing and the commerce, 7 and 5%. Agriculture, it has been growing, but it's located in 3.6%. So we have a different aspect in the economy that has been growing. That's important, and that it's consequent with the initial comments that we have been seeing the economies in our countries growing, not on double digits, but growing normally in all the countries. So that's important for the purposes to come to our region to do business. Let's see in the case of the tax system. We have a 25% again on the net taxable income with some special calculations that provides some kind of alternative tax. And in the case of the net assets, we have a tax of 1% and over the 3 million lempiras considered as a deduction for the purposes of its quantification. We have a sale tax of 15%, and we have an exemption of experts in the case of the reason. Sorry, in the case of the operation for VAT purposes, and a capital gain tax of 10% in the case of individual or legal entities domiciled or not in Honduras. So again, we can see in the case of the capital gain tax will be rounding all the countries with a 10% rate. That is very interesting as a region for the purposes of investment or exit strategies. In the case of the promotion and incentive scams, we have the free trade zone that provides exemption on the merchandise that comes to the zone, and we have another exemption in the case of taxes and municipal contribution, considering mainly the income tax. Export processing zones, there is some kind of free trade zones and established for the purposes to provide services to abroad, and has exemptions in the case of the imports duties. We have exemptions on the municipal taxes and some kind of other exemption, but limited to 10 years. And we have another temporary import regimes for the purposes to helps the increase of the internal activities related with the import and re-export of products or machineries and all. In the case of Guatemala, we have to Eliu Castillo from the private sector that will help us for the purposes of the discussion of the opportunities and the private sector thoughts on the Honduras economy. Eliu, thank you to join the presentation. It is very, very, very important to us to listen your position as a private sector representative and to listen about the opportunities that has the country for the purposes to do business and to know how we can deal with the adversity post-COVID and how the government are thinking or what you from the private sector have been listening the government comments about the economic capabilities and the new ways to increase the business in a country. Eliu, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Francisco. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I think my colleagues have already said that we are entering a very tough time for all of our countries. We're in a world crisis, an economical crisis. We come from COVID. We have had 2 hurricanes here in Honduras. We have the war with Russia, the freight and container crisis, the supply chain disruption. And all of this, of course, is worrisome for us at the business world. But from these challenges, I believe we must look at all the advantages we have and try to strengthen them in order to attract more investment and make a better ambience for making business. And Honduras is working on that. We are an economy open to the world. We have 13 free trade agreements that gives us 43 business partners, and we have happily a positive balance with the European Union and with Canada, for example. We have, as you already exposed, a very robust bank system based on Basilea III. And it is not only stable, but also we have a lot of liquidity at this time, which is also attractive for people that are coming and doing investments in our country. We have a very strong productive sector, and that has allowed us to be, for example, the fourth exporter of frozen shrimp in the Americas. We're the seventh exporter of cigars to the world, the second biggest coral reef just after Australia. So we're also very strong on tourism. We're the second exporter of Latin America from palm oil, especially to the European Union. We are the first export in the world with fresh tilapia, the fifth export to the world in coffee. It's a very great coffee. I recommend it highly to each and every one of you. We also have a very strong maquila system. We are the fifth exporter to the world with T-shirts and the number one exporter to the United States. And we're also into the electric harness maquila, and it's the third exporter worldwide and in the Americas. So as you can see, we have a very strong productive system that we are trying to strengthen every time. We are also talking about sectors that have a lot of potential to be developed, and then we have agriculture, construction, we have the BPOs, we have tourism, as I already commented, of course, maquila and an intermediate maquila. And to be ordered to do this, we also need a human talent, as my colleagues have also said. And there we have a very big opportunity because Honduras has a very young population. Most of our population is between 18 and 40 years old. So we're in a very productive age. And we have the biggest bilingual population of the region with a very good pronunciation, if we must say, and that gives us edge on the BPO area. And we have a lot of call centers from the United States coming to Honduras due to that fact. Young people and who know English is always attractive. And of course, we're looking to robust the educational system to train or to build the capacities for our population to be able to enter into other areas such as maquilas, such as what we're working on with this digital economy, which is something in which we are trying also to make a stronger development into. We also have a robust infrastructure. We have 4 international airports, and we have this, which is a megaport, and it has been certified by the U.S. Coast Guard and by the U.S. Customs, which makes it a very important asset, not only for Honduras, but for the rest of the region. As we have been talking, there's a lot of challenges, but we also see the opportunities. We have a new government, which is always a new chance to start things or new trends of things. And we're convinced that only working alongside government and the private sector, we can make a better Honduras. And therefore, we have also made a series of proposals to the government in order to address topics like energy, human talent, as I was explaining before, agriculture. Obviously, climate change is something that's quite important for us. We are sadly quite fragile when it comes to climate change, and that was shown in 2020 with the 2 hurricanes that hit us right when we were in the pandemic. And we are doing things to not only strengthen the way in which we deal with climate change, but also the infrastructure to be sustainable, and so we can be able to address this kind of issues. Digital economy is something that's coming very strong to us, and I think it was also pushed a little harder because of the pandemic. We discovered that the world that we can have at the digital area is also quite important to make business, and we're trying to explode it a little more, and also, of course, try to make a more robust health system. Because with COVID, I think each and every one of our countries discovered that our systems were not as strong as we would have hoped. But still, that is something that we are working on. These proposals have been given to the government through our Sustainable Enterprises Strategy. And of course, we have talked to the government a lot, letting them know that we are in full capability to work with them towards these goals of improving our indicators to make ourselves a better or more attractive to investment. We are convinced that nearshoring is a great opportunity that we need to work on, and to develop this ambience for the new investors to come here. And what we're heading for is a rule of law, trade facilitation, transparency, and fight for corruption. I think these are three pillars in which we can all agree that our countries need to work towards in order to have a better opportunity to make better and stronger businesses. I would say this is what we're working on, and thank you once again for inviting me to the event.
To you, Eliu, it's very interesting to listen about the opportunities and the important activities in Honduras. I'm aware about the call center business in Honduras. I received a question to you regarding the importance of the business in Honduras. Mainly, the question refers to the if exists an impact or not in a relation between Honduras and the main business with the North America, with US, in front of the impact of COVID during the last year. How the private sector has dealt with the obligations that has regarding the business with US, and the limitation, if exists, in Honduras for the purposes to deal with the business in the North America.
Well, fortunately, even though each and every one of our countries had a lot of affectations due to COVID, our industry continued to work with all the biosecurity measures that we had to establish, but we were able to continue working. Of course, the maquila also destined part of its working force to produce the products needed for attending the emergency, like the clothing for the doctors and other kinds of health products that needed to be used during the pandemic. But happily, as I said, we did not lose that power to continue with our business with the United States. What's more, we made a few visits to the states as private sector to try also to get the vaccine for Honduras, and happily we were able to get the help from North America in that sense. Unhappily, many of the countries of Central America were not among the first to receive the vaccine. So that was something that we really addressed and pushed, since we needed our workers to be able to be protected against the COVID, and to be able to work in a safe environment and under safe conditions. That was our main concern. So even though exports and everything came down, it was not as dramatic as one would think. I think the sector that received the biggest blow during the pandemic was tourism. And I think this happened worldwide. They were the first sector to close and the last sector to be opened back to business. Our relation with the United States is still robust, is still going strong. There will be more opportunities to increase it through the nearshoring, as we mentioned before.
Great. Another question, but now for Ramon. Ramon, Eliu makes reference about the call center, and in our experience dealing with the call center, what's the main worries dealing with that activities? How we see it from our side, thinking on the possibility of more call centers coming to the country. Go ahead, Ramon.
Well, good morning, everybody. I think the call center and BPO, they are very getting stronger here in Honduras. As Helio mentioned, we have the young audience and also bilingual with a good level of English. And also there are some specific laws that provide some very attractive incentives to these call centers. So they also deal with the issue for the pandemic, but they were able to move from on-site to remote work. And one of the things right now maybe that they are dealing with is with some changes to the labor law, which it's a minimal effect, but they are adapting to that, and they are seeing more the benefits that they have with the people here, to be able to serve their clients over in the United States, Canada, and Europe also.
Okay, thank you, Ramon and Helio again. Thank you a lot. It is very interesting to listen about the different ways that Honduras deal with the economy, and in other sectors that probably on a normal way we do not have a direct access with, but it is evident that create a great environment to growth in a country and to have different opportunities to increase the capabilities of the country. Eliu, thank you. Ramon, thank you. Now, well, let's go to the last country. Let's move on to Nicaragua. In the case of Nicaragua, we're talking about 6.7 million inhabitants with historical inflation duly controlled. Let's say that 7% probably is pretty much higher than the other countries, but it is evident some kind of control in that case. In the case of the international banks, we have several international entities located in a country, probably more focused on regional financial institutions located there. In the case of the active population, we have rounding 3 million economically active inhabitants and an unemployment rate of 4.3%, according to the central bank. It is lower. It is very near to the full employment, has a conceptual description and the techniques define the unemployment rate. And it's very interesting situation in Nicaragua. In the case of the economy sectors with the most important impact on the GDP, we have, well, in the case of the inflows, obviously most important of the evidence of money coming to the country. But we have another important sectors located on the energy and the mining sector, and another activities related with the free trade zones, and increases in the case of the possibility to boost or to reboost in the economy, thinking on that space of the free trade activities in the case of Nicaragua. If we talk about the tax system, well, we have a rate of 30% of the company taxable income, or we have another 1 or 2% on gross revenue has a special regime, with another special rate of 20% of withholding, and or in a case of other transfer of goods and services with 10%. The capital gain tax, it is another 15% definitive income tax rate. And in a case of the municipal tax, and different than other countries, here we have a 1% gross income payable to each municipality. In the case of the dividend, interest, royalties, and others subject to 15%. We have been talking about another country with 10%. And in the value-added tax, we have a 15%. And we have a comprehensive rule of transfer pricing in place in Nicaragua. In the case of the incentive and promotions and all, we have, as just described, the export-free zone law that provides exemption from taxes and custom duties, VAT and municipal taxes, right? In the case of the tourism legislation, we have a qualified tourism project that has tax exemptions. In the case of the renewable energy incentive, we have in Nicaragua some special rules that provides for new projects exemptions and grant some beneficials. And in the case of the temporary admission system law, has the possibility to import and export with some limitations in the case of products coming to the country. As you see, it is a very general regime we have on Nicaragua, and mainly very similar to the other countries in the region, and working on a stable basis year by year with a limited impact, has the economic news informed in the case of the pre-years due to the pandemic, but the economy growing on a controlled basis, but growing as the number indicates. With this, we finish the presentation of each of the countries, and then we'll try to open to Q&A. But just for the benefit of all, I received some questions related with the regime and the transactions between the countries. I'm now trying to introduce the rest of the team in the region, just to try to talk with all and to try to have a better understanding of this question. The first one is related with the comprehensive transfer pricing regulation and the impact that we have been seeing in our countries. For these purposes, I would like to introduce to Marcela Rakipay, for our partner in charge of transfer pricing. Marcela, I received some question about the experience that we have been seeing in our countries regarding to challenge from the transfer pricing perspective in our countries. May you elaborate a little more about what or experience with the different governments about this situation?
Thank you, Francisco. Hello to everyone. Thank you for your question. Yes, indeed, transfer pricing is making, let's say, big steps in the region. In each and every country you have mentioned previously, we have local legislations, local obligations regarding transfer pricing. So we are seeing that the countries in the region are moving forward in this topic and are being consistent with the OECD guidelines, are being consistent with what the OECD is producing or is saying regarding the transfer pricing topic. Also, we are seeing that the tax administrations in each and every country are being very active. We have some countries where these tax administration are more active than others. Let's say Panama, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic. In these countries, the tax administration are being very active and are questioning all the analysis, are questioning the documentation the taxpayers are presenting, are filing to the tax administration. And we have seen that we have a tax administration with more experience, with more knowledge, and it's really making transfer pricing more challenging for the taxpayer. So let's say that multinational companies and who are based in this region or pretend to or are going to be based in this region really has to bear in mind or to take or to have in their investment to have transfer pricing really present, because it's a topic that is being really questioned by the tax administrations.
Thank you, Marcela. So in the case of the last BEPS rules, yeah. how have been working the authorities during the process of the assessments and all in the case of the transfer pricing?
Yes, we have seen that we have changes in the transfer pricing documentation. How we have master file, local file, country by country reports, and notification of the country by country reports. This means that the local legislation, for example, in Panama and Costa Rica and Dominican Republic, is being changed in line with Action 13 of BEPS. But we also have seen changes in the local legislation in line with the minimum standards of BEPS. So let's say that the legislation is changing and requiring more transparency, requiring more consistency, requiring more substance. Substance is the key word, let's say, in the intergroup transactions. So it's not only making good analysis, transfer pricing analysis, but also we have to take a further steps and looking into the transaction and see if they have substance and if they have consistency, because the tax administration have information from other countries and they are checking this substance, they are checking this consistency with other countries.
Good. Substance, that's the key word. I agree with you. It's a key word from now. It's a key word we need to deal with. Alexander from El Salvador, obviously the question that comes to our attention is the Bitcoin. How can you describe the introduction of the Bitcoin and the experience we are dealing with the Bitcoin, and what is the main comments that we have been listening or reading from the tax authorities about the Bitcoin?
Thank you, Francisco. Yes, in fact, Bitcoin, as you may all well known, it was introduced a year ago here in El Salvador. We were the first country in the whole world to introduce Bitcoin as legal tender. So has been challenging in the first months because a lot of companies didn't know how to handle the operations of Bitcoin in their normal activities. But however, the government has a very well-known agenda for introducing digital economy, as Javier mentioned. It is an agenda that the whole government is pursuing, to have all the companies to digital side. That is in fact one of the main goals of Bitcoin, to put El Salvador as a country that it is open to do business in the digital sectors, is open to be seen as a country open to as a sandbox, as Javier mentioned, is like all these type of operations that we are seeing, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cryptocurrencies. The government is very keen to hold these foreign investments. So the experience has been challenging. It is in fact challenging because there is all new operations, all new business, but we are seeing more and more acceptance by the public. So that's a very good news for us.
Excellent. But and just to try to improve the doubts that the participant that sent it, but the government, or mainly the tax authorities, has been talking about the Bitcoin impact on the tax legislation.
Not as a directly involved with Bitcoin, because as I mentioned before, Bitcoin, the introduction of Bitcoin as a legal tender is one of the flagships of the government. So the tax authorities has been very keen to accept Bitcoin and move forward with the operations of Bitcoin. Foreign investment that or companies that wants to add Bitcoin directly in your operations here in El Salvador, tax authorities has been very, very widely accepted. Our tax legislation has not changed from Bitcoin. Mainly the Bitcoin law and some other technical legislation that was passed by the Central Reserve Bank of El Salvador was the whole framework that operates on Bitcoin, but the tax framework itself hasn't changed, but the Bitcoin law produced that all Bitcoin transactions are exempt of income tax. So that's one of the key goals. There are other agendas that the government is pursuing, to like that you may have heard, is like Bitcoin City and other type of investments that the government has seen. But we are really expecting all these legislations to be passed in order to assess all the legal and tax implications here in El Salvador.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Ramon, I received some comments from DR, and mainly rephrasing the comments that Peter introduced about the creation of the investment cabinet for the purposes to promote and to accelerate the investments and to move forward the logistic part of the deal. And the question mainly is related, again, with Bitcoin and your thoughts about, or thoughts about the introduction of the Bitcoin in under umbrella of this promoting investment policy that the government is trying to introduce to the government. May you elaborate some comments about it?
Yes, certainly, Francisco. Good morning to everyone. I believe that the only country that is dealing with Bitcoin is El Salvador. The Central Bank of the Dominican Republic has specifically said that it's not acceptable in the Dominican Republic for legal tender. They say it's not regulated, and therefore there's no control on that. That's their position, and I believe that's the position other countries has taken. It will take time for our countries to be able to accept that, because there's a lot of noise with regards to that. I wish my friends in El Salvador good luck with that, but that's not in the agenda of our government. The agenda of the government, and I have met the president himself, is to facilitate foreign direct investment. If you want to invest in the DR, he will make sure that you get a fast track to do it. And that's the message that Peter deliver, and I've seen as part of my business here, that's the goal of the government.
Excellent. So I'm very, very interested in this fast track to promote investment, and that is my own question. It works on a executive decision, or is something that is considered on a special law or need a special law according to the kind or the level of investment coming to the country?
That's a very good question, Francisco. The laws are there. What he has done is to create this cabinet led by Peter, and also by the private sector. It's like an alliance, a strategic alliance, private sector and public sector alliance, to make sure that all in our countries normally takes time to complete processes. Now there is just one window that you have to go, and you don't have to go to 7 different institutions for the permit. This, I would say, only window will give you the fast track. So you don't have to go to the environment ministry, to the tax ministry, to the investment ministry. All of what you need to invest will be in just one window, one door that you will open, and then you have this fast track. That's the main key driver. In certain countries, for instance, in the past, and when we saw they're doing business internationally, creating a company took 48, 62 days. Now it's 24 hours. For instance, if you have to take a trailer out of a container out of the Dominican Republic, it took 3 or 4 days before. Now you can do it in 24 hours. Those are the key drivers and changes that the country has modified in order to promote investment.
It's some kind of one-stop shop. Great, Ramon. Oh, well, I think we finished our presentation. I would like to give all the thanks to everyone that participates in the process. As you listened at the beginning, within our global strategy, the new equation, we are trying to present important matters to the world, to the economic business society, and to the countries, for the purposes to help to build trust and to increase our capabilities as a countries, as a business guys, as a countries focus on the growth. And that's the support that PwC globally and PwC in America offers to the countries. As a closing remarks, please follow us in our social media. Our marketing team will be connecting with you through or to offer our different media networks for the purposes to be in connection with us. And the content of this presentation will be available on YouTube very soon, or people will connect with you and well, to offer our availability for any clarifications about the discussions today. To the people on a government and the private sector that helps on a presentation, thank you a lot. We, as a PwC, are very, very grateful of your help. I think that the joint communication of the objective of each of the country is the key word, as Alex said, in El Salvador, is the key word to increase our possibilities within the world. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon with another of our projects. Tomorrow we'll be talking Spanish with the presentation of the doing business, and again we'll have all other participants from the governmental and the private sector to discuss a little more different about the implication of doing business in Inter-Americas and Dominican Republic. To everyone, thank you and have a nice day. See ya.